opportunity for players to have each of them controlling one of those harassing forces and the main army. I mean, that's especially what's interesting in the Zerg Archon mode matches, where it's so potent to have sharp focus on just 20 Zerglings. Yeah. And if you have 2 of those troops moving around as well as a main force, that's really scary.
Yeah, we've seen some absolutely incredible things here. What
is the most insane stuff that you've seen in Legacy of the Void, like the sort of combo Archon-y stuff?
I mean, the most insane as it gets, really, is I think is what the Terrans can do to each other. Some of my favorite games that I've seen have been some TVTs and Archon matches, just where you've got people trying to juggle their Vikings against the Liberators, sieging positions where tanks are, and using medevacs to move the tanks out of Liberator positions. And for TVZ, I think that's equally applicable, because you can have things like Ravagers taking shots, and you need someone that can move those units in and out. For me, it's all about the harass, because you can, while that's happening, you're going to miss like 3 other engagements happening you didn't even realize were possible.
Gosh, 2001 to 2012. That is about twice as long as StarCraft2 has existed. Publicly, I know you didn't happen the same day.
I mean, it's just so cool, the lineage of StarCraft, though. Like, we got to see Boxer in StarCraft2. We saw him in Brood War, and now we're getting some fun here in a show match, entering into Legacy of the Void with Archon mode. I actually, like, I'm really actually excited for this, because Archon mode, and Nathanius has casted a few Red Bulls with this too, it's actually really fun and cool. Like, let's be honest, none of these guys are grinding up that ladder 9,000 games or anything like that, but with them all combined, it's going to be a very skilled, awesome game. It's going to be really fun, and not just because they're all legends.
And these players are almost ready to go. Our last player being introduced on the screen right there is NesTea. I mean, the creator of the universe himself being paired with the guy who has no titles but was still really influential.
Yeah, hugely influential. And it's actually kind of a cool thing too, because it's a little bit of a difference from, I'm gonna get way off started real quick. In Brood War, it was all about winning the titles. Or no, in StarCraft2, it's actually all about the titles, but in Brood War, you could actually have a legend kind of outside of that. Yellow is kind of proof of that.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the Pro League structure, there's the NBC Star League, the OGN Star League, all the dual tournaments were constantly broadcast.
Just a good run was huge, because we would sit and think about that for like 6 months until the next big tournament. It's gigantic, it's weird, it's different.
I mean, I'm just really excited, actually, because, I mean, this is the sort of a moment where you really get to see players eager to test, to explore a little bit more. I mean, the number of players that I have heard personally say, even before they step onto the stage, like, hey, I'm really nervous about this match, so I'm just gonna go standard. I mean, I've heard that 1,000 times. I'm just gonna play standard, I'm just gonna do my normal thing. Like, Archon mode says, no, don't do that. Do something a little kooky. I mean, the Oracle trap.
Yes. Stasis Ward's so cool. In fact, I kind of want to ask you, like, what is the like composition you're most excited to see, like in specifically in Archon mode with 2 people controlling an army? What do you look forward to?
So for me, I think it's not less about the compositions, but more about what we found internally whenever we play test in Archon mode is if one person just focuses on multi-prong harassment throughout the course of the whole game. So the goal here is not necessarily to end the game or kill a lot of stuff, but just to have both sides alive and harassing the whole game makes it so difficult for the other side. So I think seeing something like that would be very cool.
Especially knowing the personalities of these players, that is no doubt what we are going to have in store. The match is now loading. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for game 1 of this best-of-3 show match between MVP Boxer versus NesTea and Yellow. Take it away, commentators.
It's time for the first ever Archon mode show match. Legends from Brood War and StarCraft2 facing off. I have no idea how this is going to look. I have no idea what they're going to do.
Well, I do. It's going to look amazing. They're going to do awesome because these guys are so great.
I'm really excited. This is like the perfect experiment to have here. We have these 2 players, or these 2 teams, I should say. The men who invented Brood War, in a sense.
And the men who invented StarCraft2.
Exactly. And now here they are in a totally new area. All the builds are different. Don't forget, in Legacy of the Void, you start out with more workers. So it might look like we're a little bit deeper in the game, obviously, than what you might be used to. But starting out with more workers means all the builds are completely different.
That's right. A lot of things are, in fact, different in this game. And one of them being, see that time there? It says 1 minute 30. Oh, that's actually 1 minute and 30 seconds.
That's right.
One of my
get
favorite
the time
changes.
fixed. Very exciting stuff. We have a little bit of info, and we just discovered this right before the game started because we can see the in-game chat.
Yes.
And so they were talking about, they were talking to each other. Apparently, at least for the start, it looks like Boxer is going to be focusing more on the micro and attacking the other player, and then MVP is going to focus more on the build for the start. And on the other side, it'll be Yellow focusing more on the micro, and then NesTea on the macro. Now, I don't know how long that'll actually go for. I'm not sure they know how long that'll go on for, because it'll eventually be a lot of jumping around. I think what David Kim said back there was really interesting about if you just keep harassing them. I mean, it's so hard to keep up. One thing about one-on-one StarCraft is that it's almost impossible to keep up entirely, so it gets so tough. And when there's two, you can have a lot more action like that.
Indeed, and now we do see a Reaper coming out here. Surely Boxer microing right now against Yellow Zings, and look at that, throws down these KD8 mines, and these do some area damage, I guess you call it.
Area effect damage, yeah.
Makes everything jump in kind of a funny circle around it, but it only does 10 damage, so it's not too much. It's kind of funny looking, but it is a hell of a lot of fun to watch and play with.
Yeah, you can definitely relocate those workers, and then you can punish from a totally different angle. So we see those being chucked out right now. The Queen bouncing up in the air. Another command center here being made, macroed out by MVP. Meanwhile, over here at the ramp, more harass is continuing. Boxer looks like he might be trying to dive in here to the main of the Archon Zerg.
Yeah, looks like the Ling's going to chase him back for the time being. Those mines do come up every 10 seconds or so. So, see, they do go down again, and bam, the drones get thrown off here once again. And by the way, guys, before this gets going too quickly, make sure that you jump on Twitter and go hashtag MVP Box if you think they'll win, and hashtag Yellow NesTea if you think they'll win, so you can see what people are thinking.
Looks like this Reaper has maybe coming to an end. No, just in the last second, managing to not escape. Gun down there. So far, solid defense there by Yellow. It was cool to see the new Reaper harass be exhibited in a way.
Yellow 1, Boxer none right now. Kind of a reversal from before.
That's very true. It also, with these two guys here together, I am actually wondering, just because the game's going to slow down just for a second here, how does this look when it really starts to pick up? Because you can't just have one person macroing all the time and one person microing all the time, right? Eventually, you might have to cut the map into, okay, like you focus more on the top part or just the drops, or I'm going to focus on the ground army. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool, and part of the style of different Archons is like how they're going to split that up. Like if you're being multi-pronged harassed, why not put one guy defending one area and one guy defending the other area? That's definitely a possibility, and I'm sure during later battles that we are going to see both players controlling those battles to try to make sure that they just crush it.
By the way, a little bit of old school flavor here. Scouting barracks, that was used much more back in Brood Wars. We're seeing kind of a fusion of two styles here to poke out. Meanwhile, going back into more of a StarCraft2 traditional style, we see the Hellions coming out here and trying to drive back the Queens and then ideally eliminate the creep on the map.
Now, guys, this is the Cyclone. It's like a mobile Scud missile launcher, and it can log on to things. Right now, they're upgrading its damage overall when it does lock on. And when it locks on, it can move while firing, and it does a lot of damage, especially to armor. And over there, we do see, of course, the Ravager. It comes out of the Roach. Something you can actually morph it into, kind of like a Baneling, but it doesn't die. It does shoot those things up in the air, which land and do a lot of extra splash damage. It's called Corrosive Bile, and it's definitely something you want to dodge.
Yeah, and that really forces, the opposing player to give up room on the map, because there's going to be locations on the map, as you can see right there, that will be hit. And that allows you to then maybe do damage if you have longer range attacks as they're retreating, or maybe force them into an area of the map where they don't want to go to, but they get trapped in.
That's right, and it's a lot of damage as well. It's 60, and it's AoE damage. So if it lands on a bunch of clumped up units, it can deal a lot. So you have to dodge that. They still do a lot of damage, about 16. Shoot a little bit slower than Roaches, though, so you don't want to fight heads-on just like that. He's going to have to pull back for now.
Well, he's right outside the entrance here of the Archon Zerg base. They both are, I should say, outside the entrance. And it looks like all that they could try to do right now, Yellow just trying to blast them back as far as possible. We had an interesting mech push. I'm curious how effective this will be, not just in Archon mode, but, in the matchup in general as the game develops further. But he does have SCVs here to repair this.
Well, right now we do have him pushing this back still. A lot of harassment going on. These SCVs, of course, on auto repair, trying to keep everything healthy there for Boxer, stealing a little bit of that MVP economy.
Important to note, speaking of economy, it's 3 base versus 3 base right now. So while this aggression's going on, the Terran army has actually managed to stay even on bases with the Zerg, which regardless of what version of StarCraft you're playing is always a bad thing for the Zerg.
Yeah, certainly it is the case. And I do notice that so much can happen in Archon mode. Look at this. We've had non-stop harassment this game while they're still expanding all over the place. They're both over 100 SPY despite the fact they keep losing units.
Yeah, it's pretty neck and neck, and take a look here. Yellow might actually loop around now. He does have some lings on the outside. It looks like those lings are actually going to be barreling over here towards this expansion.
Indeed, they are. We're going to have to see what type of damage that they get done. Will MVP be able to deal with that? He doesn't really have a lot of units to work with because Boxer has taken them all to the front.
That's absolutely right, and this is going to be a huge problem right now. As you can see, they're just taking so much damage. Not much to defend here, and losing these workers is going to be a big problem. The push still continues on the entrance.
It does, and we see right now Boxer does have to back up, takes a lot of damage there as MVP. It takes the Hellions away to defend against these Zerglings.
And that was a great interruption there by NesTea Yellow to get that over there and slow us down. And this push is really thinned out. I'm not entirely sure these two Cyclones are going to be able to do much more damage.
Yeah, I think that at this point, these two lone Cyclones not going to be able to do a whole hell of a lot. You know, Zergling's going to be a pretty good counter to them overall. They're really better against bigger units, you know, in lower amounts because they are so good at single target damage. So something like Zergling's going to be a great counter to this in the future.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. But so far, unless he switches into those Zerglings, they're going to be able to still keep doing more damage. Again, with perfect micro, you're not going to take damage as long as the stats are proper that you can actually run and hit while they're not hitting you. So you can see really a lot of abuse being dealt out here.
And look, he's using the barracks so he can still see those roaches and he can still deal this damage and run away. And yeah, every now and then the roaches are getting a kill, but oh man, they run too far into those Widow Mines and Yellow is just hemorrhaging these units.
Again, barracks spotting not common in StarCraft 2, but much more common in Brood War actually, because it was so cheap to just have a barracks floating over there, even if it's taking damage instead of just scanning up there, and that seems to pair well with the Cyclones right here.
Well, right now they are pushing for it. I'm very excited to see these Vipers come into action shortly here. I love that Boxer just wants a lot of Cyclones. This is like one of the matchups that I haven't seen him as much in, but I guess it's working out right now, dealing a lot of damage to these roaches.
We were actually talking backstage. We weren't sure what the role of the Cyclone would be, but it's very exciting to see it being used here now like this. Although these roaches now pushing Terran back all the way to home here. Meanwhile, Ling's harassing over here in the upper left.
Taking a lot of economical damage maybe coming up here. Still, we do see the Cyclones, though, pushing back these roaches. Another expansion going up now for MVP. In the meantime, NesTea already has his fourth up.
Kind of a never-ending engagement here in the center of the map. And, oh, looks like he didn't quite time that out right. He was probably trying to preempt the movement of the Cyclones and then hit them there. But not so effective.
No, not quite. You see a lot of damage actually dealt on both sides there. Lots of units have gone down. Still trying to hit with corrosive fires. You got to be careful with those. Don't want to hit yourself, but does push them back for the time being. More and more mech units coming out now for MVP and Boxer.
Well, we now have Vipers coming into play here, still driving him back just a little bit. How do you think these Vipers are going to fare in this situation?
Well, you know, I think he's probably going to go ahead and abduct these units into his roaches and into his Ravagers, so should be able to kill those off pretty quickly. Now, we do have Hellbats coming. I don't know if you want to abduct Hellbats. I don't think I've seen it before, but I'm not thinking it's a good idea.
That's usually not a thing. By the way, Zerg losing a decent amount there, but if you look at the supply overall, and that's something we haven't really highlighted here, it's 123 for Terran, 187 right now.
You know,
for Zerg. So
watch how much he kills with those Cyclones. Doesn't seem like that would be the case, but
it seems like there's always a very small number of Zerg units, but then when you actually look at the numbers of it, the game's almost stopped Zerg from making anymore.
Well, when you've already created the universe, is it that hard to create 200 Zerg supply?
Oh, beautiful hits there with the Widow Mines, really punishing NesTea Yellow and forcing them back.
Well, right now we do have those Hellions going around the map, starting to poke all over the place. We might have these two both starting to micro a little bit if I had to guess, but you know, Boxer's a quick one. He can probably keep on top of quite a bit, and we do see now that some Liberators are going to be joining the field shortly.
Also, let's point out here, the minerals are mining out very quickly, and that's another feature here in Legacy of the Void, is that you have to take expansions much, much faster. Oh, beautiful harpooning the Cyclones in there and punishing them. I don't know if MVP Boxer should be pushing this much further. And by the way, on the map in the center left, Creep has been pushed all the way to the ideal available Terran expansion. So Terran unable to get there. MVP Boxer going to have to fix that.
Very cute Creep spread there, sneaking its way around. But in Heart of the Swarm, the Creep stays a lot longer. Here it recedes twice as quickly. So when you clean it up, not as much of a big deal. Now, we do see these two Liberators have come into play. These are an anti-air flying unit, which does splash damage. So they're very good against clump units like Mutalisks. And then they can also go into Defender mode here, which does high single target damage. See these circles? They can hit everything in there, and you want to stay away with that.
Yeah,
away from that. They deal so much damage.
Very tough for Zerg to deal with in that situation. Hard to get in there, and if you overextend, you're obviously going to be punished. And as you can see, you can begin to leapfrog forward and slowly push into the Zerg's territory. By the way, it looks like Terran in this game wants to push into the Zerg's heart and take out the main base versus trying to go crushing expansions. That can always turn into a game of whack-a-mole.
Indeed it can. And right now we do have Ultralisk popping out. Chitinous plating is almost done, and that is different in Legacy of the Void, guys. It gives them +4 armor, which is a lot more than +2. It is, the Ultras are way better in Legacy of the Void.
But at the same time, you got to think, the Cyclones would be quite good against Ultras in this situation since they can kite endlessly.
Well, especially since they get that plus damage versus armor, they're going to just destroy Ultralisk so quickly. Really what I feel like is missing here from Yellow and NesTea is a bunch of speedlings to help surround these Cyclones and knock them out.
I think you're completely right, Artosis. I think you got to remember that, as great as these new units are and the new abilities that come even with some of the older units or new features in them, you have to combo that with more of the basic tier 1 units. I mean, Ultralisks are just not going to be good. They're never good unless there's Zerglings there to pair with.
Indeed the case. A couple Zerglings do pop out, but it looks like right now we do have this natural hatchery being taken out. It was almost mined out, by the way, because the mineral patches are slightly different. Can't get into that right this second because we do have a counterattack here. Not a very scary one, though. 3 Roaches and 2 Ultras.
It's pretty minimal. Also, it looks like Terran may or may not go into the main or may just go for the other expansions here. If Terran does go to the main, all this tech is going to be destroyed. We're already seeing the beginnings of that.
Yeah, those Liberators entering defend mode. You can't run through there. Look at that, how quickly they deal that damage in defender mode. It is absolutely crazy. Those shots have 85 damage apiece. So they will fry anything that runs underneath them.
Yeah, it's definitely a moment where you're not allowed to make a mistake there.
They are glued in where they are, though. When they go in defender mode, they cannot move around. So something like Corrosive Bile, very easy to clean them up with. You just have to hit them with about 3.
Well, at this point in time, at least all production coming from the main can't really get out of this ramp. It's going to be tough, especially if our Terran players are our one Terran team. MVP Boxer keeps reinforcing this area, but there's almost not much left here.
Yeah.
Oh, I spoke too soon, actually. There's plenty over there. So he can still keep pushing up into the main if he wants.
Well, in the meantime, Hellbat's kind of cleaning up this bottom right. There's another Zerg base down in the bottom left, though, and things are not really looking that good, I would say, for Yellow and NesTea here.
A fragmented Zerg is not a healthy Zerg, and the fact that there's no circulation between a bunch of the bases that NesTea and Yellow have here means that MVP Boxer can keep choking off different areas, keep quarantining different spots on the map, and then punishing accordingly.
Right now we do have the Infestors coming down, trying to help this out. At least they're hitting some of these bases. Really the top 3 bases in the top left here for Terran is mined out as well. So if they can get rid of that bottom mining base, then suddenly the economies are somewhat even. But right now the supply way in MVP Boxer's favor.
Well, let's also note something here. Not only is this expansion in trouble and the bottom left, but also center left. I believe that's been lifted off. If we can get it. Yeah, so they've actually, excuse me, it's very different casting in Archon mode. They've actually relocated that command center here. But this may become somewhat, not of a base race, but them trying to stamp out each other's expansions.
Yeah, it's kind of a base trade. It's like this weird rotational base trade that we're watching right now. Things going wrong all over the place. And this is something that's kind of funny as well for Archon mode, is if you get into one of these low economy situations where you're trading bases, suddenly you have 2 people basically just microing the whole time and trying to use their brains together. What do we do in this really weird situation?
Yeah, this is going to be tricky, especially when you consider all the new units and the fact that they're both having to multitask different things and communicate with each other at the same time.
Well, Right now, it looks like this base will be going down as well. This is going to leave just that bottom middle one. He is making some mutas to go there, but Cyclones, of course, can hit air, so should be able to clean those up pretty easily.
Keep in mind the Spire is going to be taken out here as well. Every time Zerg loses a tech building like that, it's going to be problematic. And Zerg with limited options, and Terran with a healthy and complete main here in tech tree. I mean, they could switch whether it's new units or old and continue to punish Zerg.
Indeed, they can. But right now, these mutas actually catching a lot of these Cyclones.
But still, the Cyclone splitting there was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Forking them out in different directions. It was a great way to punish them.
Oh, man, I can't wait for the Battlecruiser Tastes. They can teleport now. It is pretty sick and very exciting. Takes a lot of mana, though, so we'll see if we get to see it this game before it ends.
Yeah, we'll have to find out if NesTea and Yellow do play it out to the bitter end. I mean, to be frank, there's not a lot of expansions here for Terran. So, and also, as far as minerals go, it's not like they have a lot in the bank. So, you know, a few mistakes or miscontrol or miscommunication here by MVP Boxer, and maybe, you know, they can pull a miracle out here.
Well, the mutas flying around. We'll see what they can get. Oh, that is a lot of Cyclones finding these mutas right now, and they are going to try to get out of there. A few of them do make it out, but they are red in the face right now.
Yeah, they got beaten up pretty badly back there. We see the battlecruisers now coming out over here, moving across the map. Zerg's down to what? A completely like ghost town base, if you want to call it that. And then at the bottom right here, the bare bones of an expansion with no real, nothing there really to defend it.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. It looks like it should be cleaned up pretty quickly. And GG is called.
GG.
All right.
Really interesting stuff. You see MVP and Boxer, they're smiling, probably talking about.
They're both like, hey, just like the old days, right? Well, that was quite a fun little match to start off. You know, I would say really the problem that was there, because for a little bit, Yellow and NesTea together got way more supply, but eventually got picked apart. And I think that a lot of that has to do with not countering that new Cyclone unit that well.
It might also be supply balancing. I mean, there was a period where Terran was on, what was it, like 110 supply? And,
for quite a while.
Zerg was, I think, at like 185 or something like that. But it's, you know, people can, you know, joke about, you know, how on earth did that happen? But when you don't know how to balance in economically the new units, the prices of them, how to keep that war engine going, that can be tough.
Of course, that Zergling counterattack kind of really bringing them back into it a little bit. We see here, now these are the exact units that Cyclones are going to be pretty good against. You know, he's trying to showcase some of these new Ravagers, and there you go. That type of link flank is what you want. But with those Hellbats come up, of course, as we all know very, very well, Hellbats do destroy Zerglings.
Yeah, and that's why they're going to combo well with those Cyclones there. And I think maybe a little bit too heavy with Roaches here. It baited in there. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Roaches, I think, definitely not the answer to Cyclones, at least as far as we can tell in this current state of the game.
Certainly. And, you know, while Ravagers can be very, very good here against Liberators, a few missed shots, maybe not targeting it down as quickly as it needed to be, running too many of these units through with high health, which the Liberator just absolutely destroys.
Yeah, and that really goes to show you, you know, Zerg has to deal with that. You can't just allow them to get you into that position, because otherwise Terran can really isolate and quarantine different parts of the map, and there's not a lot you can do.
No, certainly not. I hope you guys are enjoying this Legends show match. Yeah, you better be. I mean, that is the creator of the universe, the original Kong, the Emperor of Terran, and the King of Wings up there. I mean, you can't get a much better match than that.
We are going to be going on to our second match shortly. If you're just now joining us here for StarCraft2 Legacy of the Void at BlizzCon, this is the Archon show match with the Legends. One for Terran from StarCraft Brood War, and then one from StarCraft2 for Terran, and then Brood War Zerg Legend, Brood War, or StarCraft2 Legend. And it's going to be really interesting as we go into Game 2 to see how they develop and see what strategies they're going to use. It's not just about how much they understand of the game and how they micro and use the new units. It's also how they communicate. So this is the first time we're really seeing the very best in the world at the previous StarCrafts learning, teaming up, and going at it in this show match. And it looks like our game's actually ready to start, so we're going to be getting into this pretty shortly here. Artosis, do you think our Zerg players can come back?
Yeah, I absolutely think that they can. If they just chatted about that a little bit, like, okay, it seems like maybe Speedlings a little bit more. If they go for Cyclones, and, you know, of course, if they're going for Hellbats, you're going to want to go back into that Roach and that Ravager.
Down here in the bottom right, MVP and Boxer, the Archon Terran. Let's make some noise. And, okay, here we go. Over here in the upper right, NesTea in yellow. Let's give it up for the Archon Zerg.
All right.
So, Artosis, you and I grew up watching Yellow and Boxer.
Indeed.
Back when we lived in different parts of the States, before we even met in person, studying them and learning from them. And then when we started careers as casters in StarCraft2, we got to see NesTea and MVP discover, you know, how Wings of Liberty was going to operate and teach all of us. So this is a real treat to be down here and have these two great teams paired up in a game that, I mean, you, I, nobody watching, even these two guys here don't fully understand, but that's what's so fun about it, is that we get to learn and see the beginnings of that.
Yeah, just to put this in perspective, guys, this is not an exaggeration at all. Boxer and Yellow made all of the foundations of Terran and Zerg in StarCraft 1. MVP and NesTea made those foundations in StarCraft 2. So to watch them, you know, try to test out being the early champions of those games, try to test out Legacy of the Void, which I sometimes refer to as StarCraft 3 because it's so different from Heart of the Swarm. I mean, that is a treat indeed. These are some of the smartest, best players when a game is young.
You know, what's interesting about this, too, is we don't normally see, as when you meet a lot of StarCraft players, you and I can agree to this, we didn't play a lot of team games growing up, right? We wanted to play by ourselves and haven't rested ourselves. So this is going to be interesting for them, see them interact. And already, by the way, here with the Reaper Harass, great control there by Boxer coming in there now.
Reapers, straight up, that is a buff to the Reaper, that mine. So it is going to be a little bit harder in Legacy of the Void to keep your stuff alive against Reapers, which is a good thing because normally at our top pro games, we see no drones killed every time.
It also seems like, you know, the Reaper can actually shove back the Queen to allow the Reaper to escape again and come back in, which is pretty important because occasionally Reapers get zoned into a corner and then picked down.
Yeah, and, you know, it's based on where the mine explodes, it's very predictable where the units will go from it. It always works in the same exact way if they're right next to it. I can't wait until we see someone with like 10 Reapers move a Queen into the middle of the map. It's going to be hard, but someone's going to do it.
Yeah, it could happen.
And I will watch that GIF every day.
Looks like the Reapers might be trapped here. Going up onto the high ground. Got to be careful. Looks like these things are going to close in. Will the last one get away? And it does.
All right, well, oh, and it tries to get away again, and it does. And it tries to get away, it does not.
Pretty crazy. And that's the kind of micro you can see when one player's back at home doing all the production, the other one's out doing all the controlling.
Well, right now we do have some Hellions out on the map as well. Definitely not the same unit as the Vulture, but something that Boxer definitely can use to some great extents. Get some damage done on that drone line perhaps coming up.
Let's also keep in mind with the positions here, well, hold that thought. I was going to say maybe we'll see a different build here, but now we see double engineering base. So that tells us we should have a very different approach here from our Terran players, focusing much more on bio.
Well, I tell you, that's really what Boxer's bread and butter is. This guy is like the original Marine King, okay? He is the one who learned how to micro Marines and get the most out of them in StarCraft 1. So to watch him use that here again, that's going to be awesome.
But hold on, this is pretty crazy. We got a Nidus network coming up here.
That's right. The Nidus worm has been changed as well. When it is hatching in your enemy's base, or I guess wherever you really want to put it,
yeah, sure, it
can't be targeted. So no matter what, it will finish. And they have to make the choice. Do they kill what's coming out, or they try to target it down?
And this can be a big threat, you know, especially if you're one of these Terrans that are turtling, because initially it was so easy to just stop a Nidus from coming into your main if you were just being vigilant. But now it's going to be much tougher, and that might change the whole way that Terrans have to turtle. They may be forced to engage a little bit more.
Well, right now we do have that Nidus worm going
that's a cute
up.
location, too. That's just out of the way of everything, close enough that it could be a total disaster here for MVP Boxer.
Yeah, they have no idea, and there you go. They know now. They're not sure exactly where it is, though, and looks like you're going to start popping out these queens, lay down some creep tumors, get that creep spreading. Of course, creep spreads quicker in Legacy of the Void, just like it goes away quicker, so definitely something to keep in mind here.
Well, it looks like NesTea Yellow should be able to actually isolate MVP Boxer here from that third base for sure, but with the Ravagers coming in here, he can actually start poking into the expansion. There's really not a lot that I think Terran can really do at this point in time, at least if they're teching into bio. It's almost like they get to function like siege tanks the Ravagers do.
Well, he definitely killed that SCV dead, but has to go home right now to defend against these Hellions. Doesn't want to lose a whole bunch of drones. And in the meantime, those queens taking a lot of damage. Someone does grab them and moves them back. In the meantime, these Hellions will get cleaned up, but that is a lot of creep at the front of MVP Boxer's base.
And that and the Hellions can't really do any more damage. They've been cleaned up, so all you have to do now is relocate. And is he? Okay, no, he's just transferring those drones. I thought he might be doing something crazy, sending them through and doing some kind of a spine crawler push with us. But no, he's going to go ahead and then push these back out of the Nidus and actually just start assaulting the bunker. And this is a real problem. You look at the amount of damage this does. The bunker can't do anything.
Yeah, indeed. And, you know, Corrosive Vial actually has a very quick cooldown of 7 seconds, so you're going to be able to use a lot of that. And even if SCVs are repairing, of course, you can target where those SCVs are standing. That's something we've seen pros trying nowadays during these Roach Ravager busts. But in the meantime, we do have these Marines coming out, picking off that Nidus Worm and nothing's around, and will clean up this creep as well.
Nicely done here. We have scans going down on the creep, and I think that was a smart move there. Good communication by NesTea Yellow to deem that strategy not working anymore.
Good pullback for sure.
Yeah, because if there was any disagreement there, that would have just completely fallen apart. Now they're not giving up, but I believe MVP Boxer with the combined instinct, aware of that coming there. Nicely timed out, gets that. Meanwhile, an attack over here at the top center.
A lot of damage being done here to that third base location. All those drones being cleaned up. That hatchery looks like it may be going down as well. Roaches and Ravagers coming in to try to push them back, but it looks like it could be too late.
Just in the nick of time. The hatchery's taken out. Now making a beeline over here to the second base. Keep in mind, Zerg, no matter what version of StarCraft you're playing, a Zerg on 2 base against a Terran on 2 base is never a good sign for the Zerg unless the Zerg intends to win in like the next 2 minutes.
No, it certainly is not. And, you know, this is very Boxer-esque, right? He flies in, kills Hatchery right before you stop him, flies out, hits somewhere else again, trying to wrestle over the place. Ooh, nice move there by the Ravager, using that Corrosive Vial, taking out some units there as well as a medevac.
All right, Stimming coming up here now. And looks like the medevacs are just going to go ahead and loop back up and hide up into the main. And this is a really cool technique here. If you could time that out right, which unfortunately wasn't done by NesTea Yellow, you could definitely hit units that are trying to chase you.
Yeah, it's actually such a cool ability. It has so much, like it zones a lot, it does a lot of damage if you use it just right, you know, which is very hard. I think it's a high skill cap spell to cast, but it definitely can have a lot of impact on the game.
And the drop again coming over here. I think one problem the Zerg team might be facing, that's NesTea Yellow, is that you know, the Ravagers, even though they're very strong, you can't split them up. It's not like a bunch of Lings, right? So yeah. Terran can really outrun the Zerg most of the time in this situation, with especially with boosted medevacs.
Yeah, they can, and we see another drop going off here into that main base. Another small change that I should mention to you guys is the Marauder now has a double shot, which is just like a slight nerf. It means that basically like armor is a little bit better against it because it'll reduce 1 more damage per shot.
Yeah, that actually adds up, especially when you get to the higher levels. By the way, that hatchery not going down.
Yeah, good save
MVP Boxer deciding, you know what, it might have been a little bit tougher to calculate due to the new changes in the game, but better safe than sorry. Picks back up and relocates. As long as Zerg is staying busy, Terran can focus on getting you know, the third base up and running healthy and then economizing that further.
That's right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what is Yellow NesTea going to try next to kind of get out of the situation. I love the fact that they're adding in Corruptors right now to go with the Roach Ravager. It's a very powerful composition at the moment, or it was in the beta that was just stopped and prepped for the launch. But they also have a new ability, the Corruptors. They actually have something called Caustic Spray, which deals a lot of damage, but has a very long cooldown, and it works on your opponent's building. So they definitely can become harassment units if they're kind of being worthless paperweights at the moment, which is a nice change.
And now an attack up here over in the center. Now Zerg's going to have to hold on to this base. He might want to get his army back over together here. So far, solid defense there by the Ravagers. Really nicely done, taking that out. Definitely an overextension there by MVP Boxer. Dude, that's one thing, especially if you're in Archon mode and you have 2 Terran players controlling 1 Terran. When do you stop harassing? When do you keep going forward? Because everybody is a little bit different. Some people are overly aggressive, but they make it work. Some people are more conservative. And that might be the balancing game right now that MVP Boxer and MVP Boxer are facing.
Well, we do see the caustic spray coming out now from these corruptors, and it is pretty cool to see indeed. It does only 7 damage per second for 4.3 seconds, and then goes up immediately to 35 damage per second. So you have a little bit of time to react to it, and if you don't, it is going to wreck everything.
Yeah, and that's going to be a problem right now. It looks like MVP Boxer a little bit preoccupied trying to get this harass working, and there's not a lot they're able to do with the corruptors coming in there. Also, important to note, Zerg at a fairly healthy supply lead right now, 161 to 141. Not much mobility here for Terran, and possibly not any more starports if they're not careful.
Yeah, definitely could be the case. We're going to go ahead and see those corruptors fly away for the time being. Definitely has to be careful to keep cleaning up medevacs. Doesn't want to take any more damage there. But right now, the 4 bases of MVP Boxer is really overshadowing what Yellow and NesTea have at those 3 bases. They're going to need to get some more economy going.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's getting a little bit scrappy here. Again, bases in Legacy of the Void mine out much faster because you start out with more workers. So you have to stay on the expansion game. I know in Heart of the Swarm, we got pretty comfortable seeing players occasionally park on 3 bases for a pretty long amount of time, but that's not the case here in this game.
Yeah, definitely not. You have to expand so quickly in Legacy of the Void. It's really a very fast, high-paced game. And, a lot of harassment has been the norm of what we've seen when pro players have been trying this game out so far. But as of right now, we see a lot of Lings and Banes being made. Some battle cruisers as well. Would love to see some of those tactical jumps from them.
Nice decision to back out there by the corruptors for NesTea and Yellow. Looks like we also have a small attack possibly coming up here. Yep. Up here in the top center, as well as a drop over here. Let's see if NesTea Yellow can split their multitasking and defend them both.
Well, right now, stemming into this 4th base area. That is such an important base for Yellow. NesTea not able to get it up. In the meantime, they do run over here with another drop. We have those corruptors coming back, so it shouldn't do too much damage.
Looks like they're handling it just fine, and this is what's really interesting is if you can just balance out who's doing what in this game, you could almost play, I guess you can get closer to that perfect game, right? Especially when it goes for defense or offense here, but very cool to see that, NesTea Yellow doing a pretty good job of putting it together. That being said, MVP Boxer are just doing a fantastic job of consuming the map. I don't know if that's more MVP or more Boxer, but if you just look at the bottom of the screen, despite all battles, if there are that many more bases being acquired by Terran and Zerg can't contest it, Zerg is going to lose.
Yeah, it becomes very, very tough indeed, but they have some good upgrades coming. They have a decent amount of units on the map, and the supplies are pretty close for the time being, so maybe they can get something done here, but those battle cruisers that are being made are going to be pretty scary as long as the corruptors don't snipe them.
Yeah, that will be an issue. Over here, once again, Terran just doing great, keeping that upper left quadrant of the map. Not a resource location that NesTea Yellow can actually mine from. But nice job coming here. Oh, we have some corruptors versus battle cruisers here. Good find here by NesTea Yellow.
Now, it looks like they will pick those off. Very expensive units indeed, so really bad to lose. And now starting to lose some medevacs. A little bit of lack of attention here, despite the fact that they have 2 players on their Archon team. But nice snipes there by Yellow and NesTea.
Yeah, very nicely done. It seems like NesTea Yellow going to try to take one of the closer expansions over here. A little bit more pushable for MVP Boxer, although pushing hasn't been much of the game, at least this round here, as far as how they're approaching it. They've been doing a lot more drops, but I think MVP Boxer may have to transition into that pretty soon. In the meanwhile, though, that is a lot of Banelings, and it's possible NesTea Yellow will be gearing up for a huge attack in just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely could be. That is a lot of banelings. Now, we do see a lot of Marines being unloaded right there. Might be seeing a fight pretty quickly coming up. The Corruptors flying around, doing some harassment as well.
Kind of crazy how much damage those Corruptors are actually doing. It doesn't seem like Terran has, at least for now, an easy way to chase them down and move them out. And therefore, these expansion locations, which would normally be a little bit easier to hold, are actually becoming a huge problem right now for MVP Boxer.
Well, they're doing some harassment all over the place, starting to get some damage done here. A nice place for those Marines to stand, really limiting the surface area of those Zerglings attacking them. Meantime, Banelings and Lings coming up, dealing with this drop in the main, but they do look like they're going to escape.
And the Medivacs are going to go ahead and boost out. You know, in MVP Boxer, you wipe out a base, but they get right back into it. And we're getting a lot of battle cruisers together here, Artosis. This may be a problem for NesTea, just barely inching by on minimal resources.
Yeah, especially when you consider how many bases our Terran team is taking down here at the bottom of the map. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing a tactical jump here from these VCs. They can teleport across the map, and that is an awesome sight to behold. Of course, it does cost a huge 125 energy, so you may be able to jump there, but you can't necessarily jump back right away.
Well, they might not be jumping anywhere, Artosis, if this attack comes down here. Uh-oh. Like 2 passing ships in the night on the right side of the map. The battle cruisers over here headed northbound, but meanwhile, NesTea Yellow Army headed southbound towards the center of the map at the bottom.
All right, well, we do have a couple Liberators coming over here towards this third base area. Let's see if they do go ahead and set up in defender mode to try to take out a lot of drones. Looks like they will. It does take a second to set up, but looks like they will be able to do so. And the drones just not being pulled here for our Zerg team.
Again, with 2 players in one race, you got to think they would be able to handle that a little bit better. However, at the same time, NesTea Yellow coming in over here, doing a ton of damage. And the Wallen not going up either. Actually, the Zerg units then bleeding into the main.
The tactical jump does occur as the battle cruisers come home to defend. And it looks like, unfortunately, everything getting cleaned up for NesTea Yellow. Really not a lot of damage done there.
Well, they got into the main, and that was cool, but now they're stuck in the main. So the battle cruisers are just going to gun them all down.
Well, still doing a lot of damage over on this side of the map. Really, NesTea and Yellow in shambles for the time being. The Corruptor's going to come over and be able to pick these off, as there's only 2 here.
Right now, neither of these players actually really with much of an income. If you look at the minerals going up, it's pretty slow. We do have this spare base over here at the bottom. They're going to have to try to repair that and just buy as much time as possible. But I believe if the number of battle cruisers are staying constant here, the Terran team can actually just roam around the map, stamping out any remaining outposts that the Zerg has.
Yeah, it seems like that's the real problem here, aside from the fact that their economy is really low right now, is the fact that these battle cruisers are kind of all over the place. And I feel like they're almost being bad Mare now, just kind of jumping around. It's like, all right, go kill this one. Now this one's going to kill your overlords before you get back, and just dealing a lot of damage here.
Well, he's got this amount grouped up here, and I think the last outpost is just a little bit south, or excuse me, in the lower part of the main there for the Zerg. That's the location I'm talking about. There you go. And looks like we're going to have an all-out air fight. Is there any way these Corruptors can do it? Let's go ahead and see.
Well, there are quite a few Corruptors here. It looks like we do have some Yamato cannons going to come out, but the Corruptors start to turn the tides of this battle, and it looks like Yellow and NesTea are finally going to get something done here.
I think they got a little bit too cocky here. Corruptors are still quite good here against air, so this is a huge overextension right now. And this may actually allow NesTea Yellow to get back on their feet. The Terran expansions are pretty spread out, but keep in mind, this is the only Zerg base that there is. So if Terran can take this out, it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, you know, the thing is that the Caustic Spray doesn't target units. It only targets buildings. So the Corruptors, doesn't matter how many are here, they can never kill those Marauders and Marines.
Yeah, unfortunately, as long as they're still there, they can't quite chip away at them. Keep in mind with minerals here, NesTea Yellow just under 100 minerals here. So until those drones return some more, there's not much else that can be done.
Well, right now, we do have a few units over here. Starting to kill off quite a few SCVs. The economy here of MVP and Boxer, very, very low. Only a few drones left over here coming in to do battle. But, of course, we know what that looks like.
Now, the Corruptors can still come out here and try to destroy some buildings, but we already see some Vikings set up here now driving them back. this may be checkmate here. I think NesTea Yellow may be at a loss.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way for them to really deal with these few units. There's a few units popping out here and there, a couple Zerglings, and that's it. GG.
GG.
Looks like MVP Boxer will go to 2-0.
Nicely done. Interesting to see when you have the very best of the best teaming up in a 2-on-2 in a game that they grew up in, playing in a more traditional 1-on-1. How do they balance out who's attacking where, who's macroing, especially when you get to these chaotic moments where everything seems to be breaking down. How do you divvy up your tasks so you can see all these guys good friends? That was a lot of fun, Artosis.
Yeah, it really was. I love the big smiles on MVPs and Boxers' faces here. Once again, being the champions that we always knew they were.
It's also interesting to see how this is going to go into competitive mode, as this is the first time we've seen pro gamers actually playing this like it is. Chobra, how are our players doing?
Well, I imagine Boxer and MVP pretty happy, you know, picking up the trophy as usual whenever they played against their opponents. But I want to ask, we saw a sneak peek in the chat before the game started. You guys were joking, and Boxer was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to take care of the micro. How fun was it just focusing on the micro? Like, did it just seem infinitely easier? 저희가 이제 게임 시작 전에 로비 채팅을 보니까 임요한 선수께서 이제 그냥 컨트롤은 내가 맡아서 하겠다 그런 말씀하셨더라고요. 진짜 그냥 컨트롤만 하셨더니 경기가 훨씬 더 쉽던가요?
일단 그 MVP 정종현 선수가 그 살림을 맡아서 해주니까 저는 이제 컨트롤, 제 장기인 이제 컨트롤에만 집중할 수 있었고 이 집중감 모드가 그래서 그런지 저한테 맞고 되게 재밌네요.
Yeah, I mean, with MVP taking care of all the macro, I could just focus on my strengths with the micro. I think that's why Archon mode's perfect fit for me, man. I can just take care of everything that I'm perfect at, and it's going to be a lot of fun winning those games. Once again, congratulations, of course. What's it like to